Here, beware.
A chance to score! No time to deal with you individually. Apologies. Summer memories will give me strength. Yeah. Let the stage be even more dazzling.
Let this air come crashing down.
Let's go! Feel the rhythm of the waves. At the beach, Alice Timefield is unstoppable.
I'll remember your fall. Don't get scorched by the light. The swift wind howling by. Ready to dance with me?
You'll regret choosing me as your opponent.
Persistent, is that all?
Stay on offense. Remember the search.
Who's got that?
Let the stage be even more dazzling.
Let me play the final note.
In the name of summer, I won't lose.
I'll remember your fall. Cherish the time you still have to feel regret.
Keep it up.
Here. The wind plays no tricks. How rude of you. Be gone. Real quick.
It won't hurt. I'll make it quick.
I have the tornado.
You'll regret choosing me as your opponent.
Ready to dance with me? I know exactly why I've chosen to spread my wings.
The enemy's fatigued.
This one's unruly.
A chance at the beach, Alice Timefield is unstoppable. No time to do it.
Let the stage be even more dazzling.
Right for you! Here we go! That way! Thunder roar!
Let the stage be even more dazzling. Let the wind go even. How rude of you. Be gone. Why so? I'll remember your fall. Don't get scorched by the light.
enjoy the final moment. Let's stir. Watch this! Meteor Morningstar!
Ready to dance with me?
Let the stage be even more dazzling. Let this air come crashing down.
Take this. Swift, swift wind, howling by.
Try this one. Bouncy whirlwind. I'll remember your fall. A single moment.
This one's unruly.
Time for you!
Ready to dance with me? I know exactly why I chose you to spread my music.
Knock knock, devil's calling on me. Let's go! It's dancing time!
How rude of you. Be gone.
Let the stage
Be even more dazzling.
stay close. Serve up! Exploding bomb! Here we go! I'll remember your fall.
I know exactly why I chose you to spread my wings.
Let's go! Sparkle bubble! Wow, you kinda dumped the bad guys on me like this. Guess what my umbrella can turn into?
Ready to dance with me?
Standing with my team! Try it! Let's drive away! Off you go! Let the stage
Be even more dazzling.
a single moment will come. Let this air come crashing down. Take this! Watch, I'll show you how it's done. Too late to be begging now. This baddie doesn't look all that tough. I'll remember your fall. What's this? Medium ice time! You're gonna love stuff. Let's run! Eye for you! Smack it on! Here we go! Enough talk! Let's go! Big Sparkle Bubble!
Ready to dance with me? Don't get scorched by the light. Let me play the final note of your
An eye throw attack! I'll help blast your trouble sky high! It's dancing time! Turn to switch! Medium Einstein! Just watch out! Ride the clutch! Bouncy whirlwind! Take this! What? I'll see how it's done!
Let the stage be even more